Improperganda number, as I pull it up here.
Number 7.
Number 7. Number 7? Number 7. I'm Ed Craig. I'm here with Alec Line.
Hello.
My wife.
Hello.
Nick Holloway.
Hello, I'm his wife.
Who's
That's
do
what you should.
you want your name on this?
Sure, I don't know if I'm gonna say that.
Shauna Cruikshank.
Hi again.
And we're here today to talk about memory. As I pull up my memory podcast notes, and like I was just saying, the first podcast I did was sleep. I think that was the first one I hosted. Then I did space. Those are pretty easy. This one's a little out of my depth. I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about today. But yeah, so I have a really simple question. What do you guys think memory is? Like, what do you think it is? Simple question.
Yeah.
Hard to think.
Wait, what was the question again?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be full of those kind of jokes.
Yeah.
That's all this is going to be. What?
Well, isn't memory just a collection of emotions, and you just kind of remember experiences based on whether you were happy or sad during those moments?
So it's attached to emotions, you think?
I think so, yeah.
Memory is?
A
Yeah.
collection of
I think
ideas and
long-term
facts.
memory is
Attached to
emotional attachment.
That makes sense to me, yeah. Yeah. John, you have any thoughts? No memories?
Forgot them.
She's a blank page.
No, I think yeah, emotions too, but it's a collection of facts and ideas in your head as well that get attached with memories. So that's kind of a hard question.
It's a weird question. It's pretty abstract. I was like,
It's
what do you
abstract,
think? What do you
yeah.
think of when you think of your own memories? Like,
That's not good.
that's not what?
I don't have a good memory.
Oh, you don't have a good
That's
memory.
what I'm saying.
that's
It's not good.
Oh, it's not
Long term.
I thought you meant the
Long
memories
term, it's
weren't
not good.
Like,
Long
oh god,
term,
my
it's
life's
not
been
very good.
terrible.
Yeah. Like, how would you just? The better question, I guess, would be like, how do you describe it? Like, when you have a memory, is it you see it, or is it more of a words? Is it more words, like a vocal thing? in
I
your head?
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a visual person, so
You hear things too. Can you hear somebody's voice that you haven't seen in a long time?
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Voice?
Yeah.
That's hard. People usually forget voices.
Yeah.
That's
It's-
like one of the things that's hard when someone like
It's probably
passes.
not like the exact voice, but it's like a close approximation of what my memory can come up with
Yeah.
that voice sounded like.
they all sound like you.
Yeah.
Alec, do you have any input?
Yeah, I'm with Nick. I'm visual.
Yeah.
A lot of sort of imagery in my head,
Yeah.
I guess. Picturing situations, places, whether it's outside or inside. And definitely the emotional triggers. I wouldn't say that memory is emotion. I would say it's the stuff we remember tends to be planted by an emotional reaction when it happens,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it becomes a
That's
long-term
why it-
memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, you have to differentiate that from
Memorization. Facts and-
habit.
Yeah, like that too.
Things that you do all the time, like language, use of reading, things that you've always done. You remember how to do them, right? But
Yeah.
that's more of like daily habit, things
Or
that you
involved.
continually do. So you never lose that memory of being able to do that. And this is why people become creatures of habit, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we keep falling back on the things that we always do.
Alec is holding up a beer. So, do you guys have an inner dialogue with yourself a lot of the time? Like, do you find yourself talking to yourself a lot?
I do all the time.
Yeah. Do you actually hear your own voice? Do you talk back to yourself, or is it just like your brain telling
I
you
talk
to do
in my
things?
head, but I talk out loud too. But I try not to do that in public anymore because I look kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I talk to myself a lot.
Yeah.
I always plan like what am I gonna say to someone, what I'm gonna like. I always do that. I'm constantly talking to myself, and like he was saying earlier that I talk too much. I'm constantly thinking and I'm talking to myself,
Yeah.
and there's always an inner dialogue for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I have the same thing too. I do. Yeah. When I'm, especially if I'm trying to figure something out, I'm usually in my head just going over the numbers and just
Yeah.
trying to talk myself out of something or into something or and it's very clearly my voice in my head. It's not like Jiminy Cricket. It's definitely my own voice.
Yeah, I find it's especially happens more when I'm like, if I'm like packing for a trip or something, and I'm like, okay, I got my socks, underwear, shirts. I got the shirts I want to wear. I got the pants I need, and passport, and
just
all
like routine stuff.
The
Yeah.
analytical
Me too.
voice.
Yeah.
Right?
Talking
Yeah.
yourself through
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that, and then
It's almost like you're like prepping yourself for what you have to do next, right? Like I have the same thing when I come home from work. I'm like, okay, I gotta do the dishes. I gotta make my lunch.
I constantly.
It's
say
like, oh, I've
that.
done this. I've done that. And yeah.
It's the internal equivalent of writing a list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think if that's necessary to pull up your memories of how to do things, is to talk to yourself?
I think you have to. It's the same way that, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm sure that there's nobody on the planet who can read a book without actually reading the words to themselves,
That's funny. I never thought about that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just look at you can, but it doesn't work. In
Yeah.
sort of a narrative,
That's
one idea after another sense. You really have to kind of go through the words.
yeah.
And so and the same with writing, right? You do that before you put it on the page.
Yeah, that's true. You sort of construct it in your head.
So the difference with memory is that it's not coming from the creative part of the brain. It's coming from something that's been recorded from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is you don't always remember it as it is,
No.
right? And especially when it comes to like song lyrics or like comedy sketches.
Yeah.
There's one really sort of intense one that stands out for me was when I was a kid, I memorized like 3 Monty Python vinyl albums,
Yeah.
word for word.
Nice.
I thought I had at least.
Yeah.
And then like one of my favorite skits, like the other day I was sitting down watching TV and Sundance Channel had a Monty Python marathon on.
Yeah.
I just happened to flick to it and I thought, oh, this is nostalgic, great, I'll watch this. And this skit comes up, which I have totally memorized, and I'm like, I'm ready to just stand there and just, and I'm going along, and I got it wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it wasn't wrong, it was just like, 2 parts of a sentence were backwards,
Oh, okay.
but I was absolutely 100% certain that I had it
That's how that
word
goes.
for word,
Yeah.
but I didn't. So,
That's funny.
and what was actually said by Eric Idle in the skit sounded to me, wait, Eric, that's wrong.
That's wrong.
You got
Yeah.
it wrong.
You
there,
got it
right?
wrong. Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned that before on this podcast where I think I talked about my dad's Led Zeppelin record that I always skipped. It skips at a certain part on Stairway to
so
Heaven.
that's what you remember.
And that's what I remember. So when I hear it on the radio, it's not right. I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah.
This part plays at least 4 or 5 times before it goes on to the next part. Yeah, it's kind of weird how your memory can deceive you like that.
Well, or even like we were watching Total Recall the other night.
Yeah.
And there was parts of that I didn't remember because I'd seen it on TV so many times and then cut out the more violent, gory things.
Yeah.
That, there's just little snippets, little 1 second clips, half-second clips, but visually I was like, whoa, that's taken aback,
Yeah. Yeah, I same thing watching that movie. There's like stuff in the background I'd never seen before. It was like, it's kind of neat. It's like watching it again for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also helps that Nick has a giant television. And everything in HD looks amazing.
well, we know where the next movie night is.
Yeah.
More than welcome to come over.
How
The
about
people in this room, not the people on the podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Everybody come over.
Friday at Nick's, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. His address is no. Yeah. So how about when you guys get something stuck on the tip of your tongue? I looked it up, and it was like some people feel like a mild anguish when they're unable to retrieve information. They're sure that they know. It's a weird thing to know something and not know it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know this thing,
it,
but you can't. Do you feel that? Like do you feel any sort of discomfort when you're trying to?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hate it.
You hate that feeling? It's a weird one. It's just it's weird for me to think that like it's when you think about it, it's so strange because it's like you know that you know something, but you can't, like you don't know that you like it's weird. It's so.
It's kind of like the mental equivalent of that sleep paralysis we talked about before.
Yeah.
where you know you can move your arm, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't bring yourself to do it.
Yeah.
You know you should be able to. But yeah, you know that you know it. You remember knowing it. You know you're going to remember, however long it takes, even if you have to Google it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which happens more and more.
God bless Google. God bless the internet. I actually typed in. I one time I was so desperate to find my iPod, I typed into Google, "Where's my iPod?"
Did you find it after that?
Actually, had some pretty good suggestions. It was like, you check your couch cushions, all this
Are you
different.
serious?
Yeah, because they put me on a Reddit page of like people that were trying to find their iPod or something like that.
That is so weird.
I still didn't find it, but yeah.
Yeah, I find when that sort of thing happens where it's like on the tip of your tongue, and I find it's just you're like frustrated and you're aggravated, but you also kind of feel like helpless. Like you can't remember it. And you
Yeah.
know it should be there, but
Yeah.
it's just not there.
Do you ever get like halfway through a joke and you suddenly realize
That's awful.
totally forgotten the
I've done
punchline?
that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the worst thing in the
Embarrassing.
world. And you know it's so funny too. You're like, oh, I'm gonna hit this, and it's, oh no.
Believe me, it's really funny,
Yeah.
but
I'll get back to you in 5 minutes. Yeah, that is so weird.
Kind of puts the timing off.
It does, yeah. That joke's
Yeah.
ruined forever and ever and ever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, yeah. You have those things like, you ever had that thing where like you go get something in the next room, and by the time you get there, you have no idea what you're doing in that room.
I've
Oh,
done
yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah,
That's like every day.
yeah, pretty much. Smoke a lot of weed. On a lot, or
No.
no.
Never. We don't do that here.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
That's illegal, Ed.
Oh right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
Remember.
illegal.
I think
Yeah.
so, isn't it? I don't know. I can't remember.
I have that all the time. Like Shawnee goes, I'll literally leave the room and then come
He's
back
worse
in.
than
And
me.
just, I do it all the time. I'm going for
And you're
senility,
constantly
early
losing
senility.
things.
Oh yeah.
It's a
Never
senior
puts-
moment.
Never puts anything in the
Yeah.
same spot. Like I put things in the same spot so I know where they are. He puts things in random places and doesn't know where they are.
You know, I come home from work, I usually just jettison everything in my pockets along the way to whatever it is I'm going to be doing. So it's just like couch there,
Yeah,
just
just
throwing it all over the
everywhere.
room. And
I'm
I
like-
come back and I'm like, where the fuck is
I'm like,
everything?
Why is your wallet in the kitchen and your keys are like? And then one time your wallet was in the freezer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I know my memory like that is terrible. Like if I don't put something in the same place every time, then I'm not gonna remember where I put it
Yeah.
if I put it somewhere else.
Yeah,
So like
same with me. I like
even my
things.
shoes are like always in the same order, so I just go and I grab them, and it's just automatic, and I don't even have to I don't have to look. I just know they're there. My keys are always on the bookshelf, so I just
Yeah.
keys and wallet are on the bookshelf. I grab them, grab the shoes.
It's a
My
system.
phone's always
Yeah.
CRM system, yeah. That's like, that goes to my
Yeah,
next
me.
question, but like how much you remember from like your own daily routines. Well, you obviously have Nick, you have a really good daily routine.
Yeah.
So you don't get lost.
That's like me too. I keep things in the same spot.
Yeah.
When I don't, I freak out. But I know I put things in the same spot. Where
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Like,
It must
where
be
would I-
really gone because it's not in the usual spot.
And then it's like, where would stupid me put that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah. Where does lazy Ed put his keys when he's tired?
Like, you
Anywhere.
do that every day.
Yeah.
They're
Anywhere.
scattered everywhere.
Yeah. How much so like we talk about long-term memory here. It's pretty easy to remember what you did yesterday. You can pretty much have a pretty good picture of what you did yesterday. Yeah?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It takes you a second though.
Mhm.
It's
Sometimes
actually
it takes a
time
minute.
what I ate
eating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, I
always
could probably-
remember food.
If it was like a standout meal, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
How about a week from yesterday?
That's
Alec?
harder.
no chance.
No chance. But can you tell me
Well,
about your Scotland
If there
trip?
was like big events,
You can
yeah,
tell me about your Scotland
absolutely,
trip, the whole
yeah.
2 weeks.
in detail.
But
It's something out of the,
the last
ordinary.
week
That's
of,
why.
of Monday in your life, you probably couldn't remember what happened last Wednesday.
I could guess.
Yeah, you could probably
I'd be very close.
you could probably extrapolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you find that, Nick?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, you just you have a daily routine, and at some point it all kind of blends together. You know, like you have work from this hour to this hour
Mhm.
usually on
Yeah.
these days, and then
Isn't that kind of sad?
yeah, that's
It is.
Everybody has their day-to-day routines.
It is though. Like it's weird
it's
that
just modern slavery. That's all.
it's well, I guess so. Yeah, but it's just kind of weird. Do you feel that way, Shona? Like it is kind of sad, isn't it? Like when you think back in your life, you're like, well, that was a lot of mundane stuff I did.
Yeah.
Like week to week, you know.
Yeah.
Like you remember
that's
big stuff. Like I can remember like details about the day we got married. I can
Mhm.
remember that
Yeah,
start
me
to
too.
finish because it was a big
Yes.
I guess they call
me
that the flashbulb memories. That's what it's called.
Flash.
When it's like a big memory and it's something new and
Right.
flashbulb memories. That's what it's called.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
some sort of event that like if it's it sort of flashes in your brain, you go, oh, this is a big thing, and because you're like I guess like you said, you're emotionally connected to it, Alec.
Yeah.
Then that, or Nick said that, right?
Nick,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
But yeah, that does make sense because it's either when really bad things have happened in your life or really good things, like a wedding, you remember like the whole day, the day you got married, but then the day that, I don't know, your grandparent died or someone died, like you remember everything. So it is really linked. I didn't think of it that way, but it is. I can remember, everything of our wedding. I can remember everything the night I found out that my grandma died.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember everything. But then other times, like I was talking to Nick before we started the podcast, I have a really bad long-term memory of when I was young. I don't know if those are my memories or it's just because my dad always tells anybody that comes over, he tells stories of when Shauna was little. Like the same, you've probably heard a lot of them. Like he always says the same.
My dad.
And the same stories. I'm like, I don't know. Do I actually remember doing this? But is it just stuck in my head?
Yeah.
But I do remember those, more recent things. But I do remember the trips I've gone on, the good times and the bad times. You always remember it in more detail than all the boring, mundane things.
And also world events. You can ask anybody where you were when 9/11 happened.
Well, actually, that's one thing I don't
almost
remember.
everybody can remember where they were when 9/11 happened.
When the Turkish coup happened?
Yeah, no one's going to remember that. Actually, no, I won't. I know I won't remember that. That is pretty shitty, though.
That I don't remember, though. You've always thought that was strange, but I don't remember that.
I'm sure people in Turkey will remember that, though.
Yes.
And in Europe.
Yeah, they'll remember that for sure.
So
But
I think it's kind of a localized memory as well.
Mhm.
So like continental memory, I think, could also be a thing.
Yeah.
Where like people in North America remember certain events more because it affects them directly, whereas not so much like 9/11. Probably not so much for people in Europe and Asia, but the London bus that blew up, 7/7 I think was the date, or something like that.
And that's something they remember.
And that's something they'll remember because that was in London, and it was a double-decker bus that just.
Yeah, I remember that.
Exploded.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, let's getting away from the darkness here. What is this to get on a personal note here? I'm going to go around the table and ask you guys what's your earliest memory is. I'll start with Alec. Because it's alphabetical.
He has to reach back the
It's
furthest.
alphabetical. But it's not really.
I'll hearken you back to...
Can you say it slower so I can add a special effect to that?
I'll hearken you back.
Nice.
You remember going to Deep River in the car, and you sat in the van, and I was just chatting with the
Yeah, that's
current
right.
owners.
To give some context, Alec and I went across the country a couple of years ago. We drove across the country and we drove through his birthplace.
Deep River, Ontario, my birthplace.
Yeah.
And we sat outside the little house where I was born, and my earliest memory, I think I must have been maybe 2.5, somewhere around there.
Wow. That's about the range they say. When I was looking up on Wikipedia, they say after about 2.5 years, people start to...
But interestingly, I have nothing until like I can sort of like document in my head maybe another year, like 3.5.
Yeah.
But this memory is just one standout memory. I was playing out by the road. My dad was fixing the car in the driveway. It was a middle of winter, snow. I was all bundled up, messing about, and I slipped and I fell in a ditch full of snow.
Nice.
And I was face down.
Oh no.
And it was like just absolute intense panic. and I even now, just sitting here, I can remember it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I was actually starting to suffocate, and I would have if my dad hadn't been there.
Oh really?
And he literally just grabbed the back of my parka, and I'm screaming and wailing and freezing, of course, and in the house, a little bit of hot food and mom's care, and that was that. And then but then all the surrounding stuff around it, no idea. Just that sort of intense moment, which probably maybe lasted, I don't know, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Not even.
So, your first window on the world was sheer terror.
But again, it's the emotion, right? That's why I remember it, because the intensity of the experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. That's interesting. Shauna? How far back do you go?
That's really hard.
That's hard.
I don't know. I know some that I totally know, but I don't know how old I was, and it's probably not even my earliest memory, but I don't know. It's really hard. I remember when the house was where I was born, in Gordon Head, and then we went to Fairburn Elementary School. But I don't know. I might have been like 6.
Yeah.
I don't think I was going to school then, so maybe I was a bit younger because my sister was 4 years older than me, and she took me to the playground that was there. It was just down from our street, and I remember this because I was begging her to let me go on my tricycle down this big hill, just begging her, and she was at that time.
I have a feeling this is going to end in sheer terror.
She
as well.
she was very overprotective of me, and she's like, "Oh no, you're gonna hurt yourself. You can't do that." And I just bugged her, and she finally said yes. And obviously, I went down, and I had all scrapes all over myself. I had a concussion, so my mom will always remember this too because she So we had, I guess my sister knew one of the other girls playing, and her dad, so she ran over there and said, "Can you help my sister get home?" So this man that my mom didn't know carries me all the way home in his arms and knocks on the door. My mom opens the door and she sees me and this man. She's just like, "Wow!" I'm like bleeding. I had a concussion, and after that I only remember bits and pieces of the rest of the night because I remember watching what is that show, She-Ra or something? Remember She-Ra?
yeah.
She-Ra?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that I was laying on the floor because I had a concussion apparently. My mom was trying to keep me awake, but I kept dozing off. I'm just in and out watching this cartoon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I remember. And just my mom watching me and saying, "Stay awake, stay awake."
Yeah.
So I remember that, but I don't know if that was my earliest.
So do you remember that though, or do you remember your mom telling you about it?
No, I remember going on the tricycle and I remember falling.
That's something I should ask you guys. Like, do you remember? Did your
I
dad
think I
corroborate
remember
that
it.
story too?
No,
Sorry.
because this is a story that only stands out for me. So it's not really a family story.
He's just constantly picking you up out of the snow. It just got to be routine.
Maybe he didn't realize it was like, because he really just sort of picked me up, brushed me off, and sent me in.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal for
So
him.
yeah.
Because I couldn't really communicate how intense it was for me. Just, I was crying like a baby.
Yeah.
Probably just thought, well, he just fell.
Yeah, he fell. He's
He
upset.
just got cold really
Yeah.
fast, and
Yeah.
that's why he's crying.
But I think I might not have remembered falling, but I remember afterwards because actually it wasn't She-Ra, it was Jem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Jam-
Because I
Jam
remember
and
the car-
holograms.
I remember the cartoon, watching that cartoon. My mom wouldn't have remembered what I was watching and told me you watched Jem. She would not have remembered that. So I
Yeah.
think that was my memory. I might not have remembered. I remember being at that playground. I remember that hill totally.
Mm-hmm.
But
Post concussion, pretty hazy.
yeah, well, it was. Maybe that's why I don't remember. I had a lot of concussions. At my old house too. I ran right into the glass sliding door.
Ouch.
Smoke. Gave
Yeah.
myself a concussion. So I have a lot of lumps on my head.
Yeah.
So that might be a reason. But I think there's bits of that I do remember. But a lot of it is because, my parents have told me many times these stories. But I don't think I was really young. I think maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I don't, It's too hard for me to know what was my earliest memory, really.
Yeah.
I remember the old house where I was born. Like, I can still picture it the way it looks inside. So I know I do have memories that go back that far. But
Yeah.
it's hard to really figure it out.
Nick, you got one?
Yeah. I remember I was 4 years old, and we had just moved from Montreal to Victoria.
You were born in Montreal?
Yeah, I was born in Montreal.
Oh, cool.
We moved here when I was 3 and out to Central Saanich, and then we had to move the next year. And that's where my parents currently live, is in that house. But that
Since you were 4.
since I was 4, yeah.
One house.
Yeah. So me and my mom went to Crystal Pool, and at that point the Crystal Pool had it was a really high diving board. It was just a concrete, it wasn't like a springing diving board, it was just the concrete
I remember
runway where
that.
you jump off.
Oh, okay.
And I don't remember how high, maybe
Pretty high.
8 meters or
Yeah.
something like that. It was pretty damn high.
I think it might have been Olympic size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, "Mom, I want to go up there." And she's like, "Okay." So I crawled up the ladder, and she crawled up after me, and then I was like, "Watch me, Mom." And then I jumped off, and my mom, obviously I remember from her perspective, because she's telling me this story after the fact as well, that she saw me jump off. She looked over the edge, saw that I was fine, and then walked back down the ladder, because she's like, "No, that's way too high for me."
Yeah.
But I remember the feeling of falling. That was the first time I'd fallen that far.
Yeah.
It's a weird, weightless feeling, but you can see the ground coming up, so you know there's going to be something happening soon. But
Yeah.
Did someone go in after you, or did you just manage to come up? And
no, I just came up.
4 years old.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was a really good swimmer when I
There's
was
a
a
very
kid.
common theme of sort of a rude awakening here. First memory sort of being, oh my god.
No, falling,
That's
concussion.
3 falling stories actually.
Yeah, that is,
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
yeah, that's not.
I
Yeah.
think yours was probably the least aggravating. I think mine was actually the least aggravating because I just hit water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was pretty happy to
but still
Yeah.
intense.
do it. I think
We
I
were
went back
crying.
and did it
We were
again.
crying.
So
Did you? Yeah. Nice. Not as your mom remember that at all, or
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
She was terrified.
interesting.
She was like, "Oh my god, he's actually going."
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And then I also remember we'd taken a trip to Alberta to visit my aunt and uncle and my cousin. And my cousin is a couple of years older than me. And he's like, "Oh, do you want to?" And it was like really early in the morning, and I wasn't really tired. And he woke me up, and he's like, "Do you want to watch a really cool movie?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." And he put in The Terminator.
Oh, nice. How old
And
were
I'm
you?
6 years old.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, that was my exposure to that.
Yeah.
But I vividly remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you would. It's
Yeah.
a very.
And to this day, you love that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, it's experiences like that really do shape who you are and what you like and
When you're young.
When you're young.
Yeah. That's interesting. Huh. My own is, I have a really simple memory that's just of looking up at my mom as she's bathing me, and I don't know when this is. It's like just, I couldn't tell you what age I am, but that's my earliest flash in the world. It's just, and it was just my mom and her friend. It's a very loving, it's a very warm, loving feeling. That's all I remember. And then it's just like, that's like a chunk of that, and then I think
Nothing for a while.
like kindergarten probably is when I started first starting. I remember like meeting my friends for the first time. It was a big deal for me, but yeah, no, I don't have the traumatic awakening.
So 5, nothing till 5.
Probably not. Yeah, nothing to 4 or 5. Yeah, I remember like 4 years old. I remember like I can remember some of my cousins when I was like 4-ish, I think. But that's about it though. I don't have anything earlier than that. Yeah. What about, so we're talking, we'll skip on to collective memory. This is kind of an interesting one for me because I find like I've been away from Ottawa now for like 8 years, and I find when I go back home now, the stories that my buddies tell each other are a bit different than the ones that I remember
Yeah.
because there's a bit of a gap. And like, so my buddies would tell me these stories, and like suddenly I'll be in the story doing something that I know I wasn't there doing, but they all agree that this is how the version of events that happened, even though I know that I wasn't there that night because I've heard the story before, right? Do you guys find that with your old friends? Like if there's somebody reconnecting with, you find there's sort of the stories that you've reinforced in your head or they've reinforced in their head that's different from the version you have?
I mean, not huge differences, like not like I wasn't there, but they say I was sort of thing. But
Yeah.
if we were at an event or something like that, they might remember different things because they pick up different things than I would.
Yeah.
So say like an outdoor concert or something, they're going to be standing beside different people than I would be, and they're going to see different things than I would. And I find especially with music, I move more towards the melody than listening to the lyrics.
Okay.
So, but they might be like, "Oh my god, that's the first time I heard those lyrics from that artist," and
So it's like a different take on the actual event. Yeah. Okay. Alec, you got some old friends. I'm not saying you're old. But we all have old
the
friends.
old jokes.
You and Gary, you and your buddy. I won't say his name, but you and your buddy. You know who I'm talking about.
Well, Sonny.
You must have gaps in your life where you didn't talk much, maybe, or
Oh yeah, I mean times when I was traveling, living in other countries.
yeah. Did you find you come back to stories that don't agree anymore?
Details.
Yeah.
Nothing huge.
Yeah.
I don't think I've never been sort of taken aback by some sort of rendering of a story that I have a version of in my head.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just gaps. I think like Nick said, like people don't have your sort of
Your take on it.
POV
Right.
as it's happening.
yeah.
And then you're kind of it can seem different, but it's just a different take on the same event.
Okay, that's interesting. It's a fairly common phenomenon, especially people that move away from their group of friends or whatever. That when they come back, they find that the stories have changed a little bit here and there, and the players have changed in the stories. So mostly just to protect ego, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff people like, like, Shauna, do you find that with your friends at all? Is there any gaps in the stories that they tell each other?
I don't know. I can't really think of any example.
No.
Probably there is, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's that story, that old idea of about a line of 50 people,
Telephone.
and the first person tells,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes out completely different down the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like a little.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the thing is, a tiny little difference gets magnified as it goes. That's so all it takes is one difference,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they felt it was so important when the monks were actually transcribing books in the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they were so careful, because they knew that if just one little thing got changed, that would get magnified.
Yeah.
Or change meanings, and then they would change other meanings, and it's like the tree growing out its branches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if you guys ever heard that one, the urban legend about the guy that broke into the house and he fell through the ceiling and sued the people that he was breaking into.
Yeah.
You've heard
Yeah,
that one?
I've heard that.
The true story. Have you heard that, Alan?
No.
Okay, so this is an urban legend that people always talk about.
Okay.
So it's an insurance thing where they say, like, yeah, nowadays if someone breaks into your house, they can likely sue you if they hurt themselves, which is what it actually was when you actually trace it back. It was a kid he didn't break into a school. He was on the roof of a school and he fell through a skylight. He was trying to get a ball or something like that on top of the school. He fell through the skylight, hurt himself, sued the school. It's just an insurance thing. It was no, like, nobody breaking into it. But this is the sort of thing that, like, you know, you hear the story, one person tells it again and again. And over the years, suddenly it's a nefarious criminal breaking into somebody's house, hurting themselves, and then the nefarious criminal sues the homeowner for hurting themselves in their home. That's like that's an example of the telephone thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, the woman who burned herself with the McDonald's
That's
coffee.
another good one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the story of that? Do you remember that?
Well, the common story that people get from the grapevine is that she was driving, and she was drinking her coffee as she was driving, when in fact she went through the drive-through with her nephew. They parked. He was behind the wheel. The car was stopped.
Yeah.
She was in the passenger seat trying to get her coffee open, and accidentally spilled it.
Yeah.
So A, she wasn't driving. B, the car wasn't even moving, right? But all of this stuff comes out somehow because maybe McDonald's planted it and they wanted to disclaim her
Yeah.
claim,
Or maybe she was her own ego.
people wanted to blame her, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she was totally innocent.
External memory. This is basically like, so like now all of us right now, well, except for me because I don't have a smartphone, but everybody else has a smartphone that they can pull up the internet at any given time and find information when they need it, as you need it. Do you feel personally that this is a waste of our brains or just a time saver? Like, how do you feel about it?
Depends on the information you're getting, I think.
Yeah.
I think if you're, say, talking to friends about, like, oh, who's that guy in that movie?
Yeah, but don't you
and
think
he's in that show?
Don't you think you should struggle a little bit longer to try to get it? Don't you
Or you
feel?
just-
Well, I try to struggle, but because I'm interested in that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I'm like, I think I can remember who this is, but everybody else is just like instantly on their phones, like trying
You
to
don't
look
get a
who it
chance.
is.
You don't get a chance, right?
Yeah.
To try to use your own.
Yeah, like I just like personally, I'd rather just grind it out for a second. Like I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But don't tell me. I'll figure it out on my own.
Using it as a
when you
crutch.
because you get that like you get that moment of like
Yeah.
eureka, I found it.
It's like
It's like euphoria.
euphoric,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a moment of
Interestingly,
perfection.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, oh my god, I remembered it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's this guy.
and I think it is killing us, it's dumbing us down, because what they say about old people is when they can't remember a word or something, it's better if you're going to try to help them and you know the answer,
Yeah.
don't give them the answer. Let them fight it out. And maybe just give them like a really obscure hint, not an easy hint, not an obvious hint.
Yeah.
And just sort of try to trigger their process, because if you give it to them, that's actually detrimental. You're accelerating their memory loss
Really?
because they're not
Makes sense.
using the mechanism.
It's just not using them.
They're not using
Yeah.
the machine.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that goes for all of us with our smartphones, right?
Mm-hmm.
The smartphone gives it to us. It's like Pavlov.
Yeah.
But I also think it can be used in a really good way where, you know, you... I wrote this down because my memory's terrible.
That's That's the good way.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's right.
The genius of editing will save you.
Yeah.
Just cut all that
No,
out.
just leave that in. It's fine. For example, in the U.S., there's, there was, Bernie Sanders on one side with Hillary Clinton and the Democrats.
Yeah.
And then there was Donald Trump, who was the Republican frontrunner.
Yeah.
And like I found listening to a lot of like Bernie Sanders supporters versus like Hillary Clinton supporters. Hillary Clinton supporters are mainly like, she's a woman, we want the first woman president. And Bernie Sanders supporters are like, well, we like his policies and we want, better politics. We don't want money in politics. And they go online and they research news stories and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where if it was just like major news networks and we didn't have the internet, then we wouldn't have access to all that information.
All that knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah.
To base our opinions on us, it just
Exactly. Yeah. We have a lot. It's a better free flow of information.
And you don't have to get in your car and drive down to the library.
Well, and the library might not have the information you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't libraries sad nowadays? I don't know if you guys have been in the library recently. It's kind of not what it used to be.
Yeah. It's very quiet.
It's very. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's just like every library I've been into, there's a lot more floor space than books now.
I have a set of encyclopedias I can sell you if you want them.
Oh, really? Can I buy them one at a time on a plane?
Sure.
Only $39.99 a month.
Yeah.
One encyclopedia.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It'll be outdated and
That's how they get you.
by the time you pay for this, it's all garbage knowledge. Yeah.
I have a set from the 50s. It's full of racist stuff, and it's actually quite entertaining to read.
Oh, really?
Encyclopedia Britannica,
Yeah.
talking about the colonies and Africa and
Oh, really? Wow.
Rhodesia and South Africa and all that.
Wow.
It's just amazing, just shocking actually, to see one of the entries. And this is like the encyclopedia of the day.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not like some right-wing out there document. It's like, this is what the kids read in school.
You know what's funny about that is like when you look back in history and you go like, "Oh, those people back there, what the fuck are they thinking? What are they? What are we doing right now
No better.
that our grandchildren will be like, what the fuck?" Well, I guess maybe killing the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't our generation. That was.
Well, we carried it on. We haven't really stopped it.
It's hard to
We're
stop.
better
It's hard
than
to
we
stop
used
it
to
though.
be.
When
Well, not with that kind of
We're
attitude.
not out in the streets with our placards.
we're getting progressive.
We're getting better.
We're getting
We're
progressively
getting better,
closer
yes.
because the younger people are starting to take a more active role in that sort of thing, where they're getting more and more interested because they realize that the planet's just going to be totally screwed if they don't do something.
That's true. Yep.
So-
that's true.
I think we got a little off topic there.
Yeah, I did get a little off topic.
Tangents are allowed.
Yeah, we're allowed to do tangents. It's fine. Memory deception. Okay. I do have a little clip here I'm going to show you guys. If you can all see it.
Is it copyright?
I can't. The screen's turned away from me.
Well, no, I'm going to turn the screen.
Oh,
for
I
you
see.
guys.
Oh,
I want you-
Oh, I've seen this one.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
So Alex
Good.
discluded. Have you seen it, Nick?
No, I haven't seen it.
Sean, have you seen it?
I don't.
Okay, so
know.
just watch this
I don't like
movie.
that.
I'm going to turn the volume up here so you can hear the volume.
Perfect.
This is some amateur porno that I did back in the 90s. No.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
Back in the 90s.
It looks like
Good
it.
casting.
Look
Yeah.
at those. Look at those jeans.
So you guys can see?
Yeah.
Okay, so just watch this. Watch this. Watch this.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
Count.
I already lost track. It's like it's the three
There he is.
seashell game, but it's
It's hard to keep track.
I mean I could guess.
Do your best guess, yeah.
How many passes
I think
do you count?
15 or 16.
23. Oh
Correct
shit!
answer.
Wow,
It's
that's good.
15
Sean,
passes.
good work.
Wow.
I was counting.
Did you
I
see
was,
the
Did you
I was
see?
following
Did you
it
see
all.
the gorilla?
Oh my god, no.
You didn't see the gorilla?
No, I was paying.
It's a gorilla that walks right
No,
through.
seriously?
Yeah.
That's actually me when I had my gorilla suit.
Yeah. Look it up. There you are, Nick.
Doing a little moonlighting.
Yeah.
And is copyrighted.
Did you see the gorilla?
I did, yeah.
So this is funny because you guys.
I wasn't paying attention.
You guys have totally different brains then, because Sean was so focused on the. This is actually what splits people. Is like some people will notice that, see the gorilla and be like, well, I've just lost count because there's a fucking gorilla.
Yeah.
And
I didn't
other
notice
people
it. I
won't
was
even see
really
it, so really focused on the
concentrating.
ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll post this link onto the
That's
YouTube
so funny.
site.
I was counting in my head each
Yeah.
one, and I'm like, I thought I missed a couple, but
It's
not
kind of-
really.
it's the opposite.
But no gorilla.
You know that old saying, you can't see the trees for the forest?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is actually, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
Because you're focusing so hard on the
Yeah.
minutiae,
The little details, not
Yeah.
the big
and
thing.
you're just
Like
blanking
a
out
gorilla.
everything else because it's too much to deal with.
Yeah.
Your mind needs to zoom in.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
How
Which
did I
is,
miss the
well,
gorilla?
it's kind of a win for both of you guys because Shauna, you got 15. You said 15, 16, which is most people can't do that. I couldn't do it. I tried it. I was like 8.
Did you see the gorilla though?
8 passes. But I totally saw the gorilla
Okay, you
right
saw the
away.
gorilla,
Yeah.
but you lost count because
Yeah.
it was like gorilla.
Yeah, I was like, "Fuck, there's a gorilla there." Yeah, but
But that's kind of like
it was
you,
kind of
'cause you
flawed.
get
It was
distracted really
flawed for me
easily.
because I knew what I was getting into. I saw this thing that was called gorilla test. And I was like, "Well, what's the gorilla test?"
Oh, I didn't
Oh,
look at
yeah.
that.
So it's like it wasn't a good test for me, but it was actually it worked for both of you guys because Nick, you said there was like 23 passes, but
Yeah.
because you basically
I
your
just
brain gave up as
wild-
soon as you saw
yeah,
the
you just
gorilla.
guessed.
Probably.
I was just like, what?
yeah. No, that's interesting. That's pretty cool.
But the interesting thing too is like, would you be able to sit down later and under hypnosis remember seeing that gorilla?
I don't
Despite
know.
To
not.
go back. Yeah.
Well, hypnosis is a weird thing. Do you guys want to talk about hypnosis for a minute? I have nothing. I haven't researched it at all, but if that'd be kind of neat thing to talk about.
Tangent alert.
It totally is a tangent, but I mean, like, we can like it's. How would you imply that to somebody under hypnosis, though? If you say, "What else did you see?" I guess you'd sort of lead them that way. Was
You
there
try
something
to
else
lead
you
it
see?
to-
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you said, if you did you see the gorilla?
No, I don't want to see that.
Just tell me everything you saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget about the ball, the basketball.
What else did
What
you
else
see?
did you see?
Yeah.
Because you saw it.
You did see
You're
it.
Yeah, I
looking at the
must have.
screen. At some point, you saw it, right?
Yeah.
Your brain is just kind of like
I
not.
just ignored it. That's not what I need to focus on right now.
So I think I've heard about studies that have done that with people where the police have a witness
Yeah.
and they try to use hypnosis to see what
Or
else they
they-
saw.
Right.
Sometimes it's not exactly hypnosis, but it's just like, close your eyes and imagine the scene in your head of what happened at the time of the attack or whatever. Like,
It's
go back
damn-
in your head and walk through it and walk us through it. What did you do? From the time that you went in your house to the time that it happened. Like, you open the door, it's kind of,
Yeah.
they might use hypnosis, but they do that. It's just like exercises. Close your eyes and imagine where you were and go through it all.
Well, I mean, we
That
could kind
helps
of
a
do the
lot.
same thing right now, where
Yeah.
it's like I could ask you like how many people were in that video, and how many people were in the video.
Be a guess.
You have to.
I'd say like 8.
I was
That'd
just
be my
about to
guess.
say 8 or 9.
Yeah.
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 Like,
Like
how many
from
times
what I
the-
remember about the video, I thought it was 3 white shirts, 3 black shirts, and a
47
gorilla.
people. And a gorilla.
So, how many times that
So
they
there's
passed.
for me there were 7 people.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Jason Bourne could tell you.
Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon.
There was 3. White
He's got
shirts.
that memory, Jason Bourne.
Well, could he? Does he remember?
Remember the scene in the cafe?
I've never seen the Bourne movies.
I can
Oh,
tell you,
yeah.
I can tell you the guy at the
Oh, yes.
counter can take care of
Oh.
himself. I can tell you the license plates of all the cars in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you the license plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking.
Matt Damon. Matt Damon.
That's bullshit. CIA guys can't do that shit.
No, he can't. He must have been playing Goodwill Hunting in the Bourne movies.
Jason Bourne, savant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Every time he sees a blackboard, he runs away.
Yeah.
That's when he's running away from his memory.
So I don't trust hypnosis. Have you guys? I can't be hypnotized. Can you guys? Have you guys ever been
I've
hypnotized at
never
all?
tried.
Can't say I have, no.
No, Alec.
I've never wanted to.
I
I've
don't
never
think I want
actually.
I've never had the
Right.
opportunity.
I've
so.
been to see Ravine. I've been in the audience.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And as I recall, he did something to the whole audience and chose his people for the stage based on their reaction.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I have no idea what you just did. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
that
So
you know.
obviously I'm not going to be one of the people on the stage.
Yeah.
And then like at the end of the show, some guy 2 rows behind us gets up and starts screaming like a monkey and doing this and
Yeah.
I could tell it was real because his girlfriend after Ravine snapped him out of it,
Yeah.
and he's like kind of mildly embarrassed and just exactly what you'd expect if he didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend's like, "What the hell?" She just keeps saying, "What the hell? What the hell?"
Yeah.
Huh.
I remember I went to like a college hypnotist one time, and my roommate got hypnotized. And I couldn't be. I didn't want to be either, but like I could sort of feel it, and I was like, no, it's not gonna work for me. It's not happening.
I'm not going to submit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I did fight it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really want to be mind controlled.
Yeah,
not a
it's
desirable
kind of
thing to
scary
do.
to me. I don't want that to lose control.
Yeah, but he got it, and he got a suggestion put in his head. Now, I don't remember what it is now, but there was some sort of suggestion that if somebody said something, it would trigger a certain action, and for it to last half an hour after the show. And sure enough, it lasted half an hour after the show. We kept saying this thing to him, and he kept reacting to it, right? It's a really weird thing to think that you can put that in someone's mind.
Yeah, I think
It
that's
is.
scary.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's the basis. That's the fundamental basis of all advertising.
Oh, yeah.
Hypnosis.
It's not the conscious message that we get from it. I think it's just it has to do with what you've got on page 2 there.
Yeah.
And it's repetition.
Nostalgia?
Seeing
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
Well, not
Repetition.
nostalgia.
commercials
but,
over and over.
Illusion of truth.
Called the illusion of truth. Yeah.
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 The more you hear it, the more true it becomes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the other brain tricks is like used car salesman trick. Have you ever heard of that one? If you go to like, but you find if you go to like buy a used car, the guy sort of like bombs you with things that you say yes to. Like he's always asking you questions that you're going to say yes to. Whether there's a whole bunch of things to say yes to, so it just leads you into a yes sort of mood, where like you're more likely to say yes to 0% financing or whatever the fuck he's going to throw at you, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
It's just a
sure,
psychological
no problem.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, anything else to talk about hypnosis? Are we done with that, or?
I think we're done with that one.
Let's move on to nostalgia.
The good old days.
Yeah, nostalgia is probably the most powerful thing I think with memory. What do you guys want to talk about nostalgia? You got anything, Alec?
Well, for me, the most recent thing that made me think about nostalgia in depth was watching Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
That one scene with Pepper, and they're in the basement in the lab, and she wants to save his original heart implant
Okay.
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
once he's made the better one.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Pepper, you can call me a lot of things, but you can't call me nostalgic." So he's like, "Just toss it. I'm done.
Done with that.
I'm focused on the future.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about."
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's, generally speaking, that's, I don't know about so much women, probably more women too, but specifically men. And
Mhm.
like sort of alpha businessman type men. I mean, he just sort of characterizes that really well. It's
Mhm.
like, it's almost an embarrassment to be seen
To be
as nostalgic,
Yeah.
or to have any focus on the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's now and the future. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I think it was really well dealt with in the movie, insofar as the plot points, it came back to like, that's what saved his life in the end.
It's just looking forward, not being.
Saving something from the past that can be
Yeah.
reused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sean? Nostalgia? Do you get nostalgic for anything?
Yeah, probably for great music and movies. Poured another Hawaiian there.
Sorry.
Dark matter. Is that advertisement?
My little green bottles are empty.
Product placement.
I do for movies and music a lot, I think. Music was a big part of me growing up. As everybody knows, my dad's obsessed with blues and he's a musician, so music always brings me back. There's always certain songs, certain bands, mostly blues, that always brings me back to a time with me and my dad. So, and that's what I like. So I don't care about just looking forward to the future. I like that because it does gives you a sense of calm, and it's a nice happy thought of remembering these these and movies. Like, but I have movies and music are kind of together with me and my dad. Like, I remember watching Back to the Future with my dad because I loved Johnny B. Good. That was one of my favorite songs, and my dad would always play Johnny B. Good when I was little, so I would like those always kind of go into each other. I remember watching The Commitments with him. I remember watching all those old movies or music.
So when you watch those again, they make you feel good.
They make me feel good, and when we watched Blues Brothers with Barry and Faye, which is Ed's aunt and uncle, that brought everything back. All the Blues Brothers, I like love that. I love that movie, and that music. I love that music. I knew every word to it. So that always brings back memories, but it's mostly like my dad. It was me growing up with my dad. My dad playing music and showing me all this good music and movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Nick?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Like, it's mainly movies for myself.
Yeah. Let me guess. Ghostbusters?
Yeah, Star Wars as well.
Star Wars as well, yeah.
But I mean, like, I find with films, I don't know, it just really kind of, if you're really attached to something when you're a kid and you watch it when you're an adult, for the most part, you're going to be experiencing it like as you're a kid because that's as you remember it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of go, it's almost like you go back mentally to that kind of age.
I totally do. I'm so critical of everything. I'm such a cynic towards everything. But when I watch Star Wars,
yeah,
my
Brings
brain
you
just
back.
turns right the fuck off, and I'm like, this is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just remember like all the lines you would memorize when you were a kid, they just suddenly like flood back.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you find that like have you ever like listened to something or like any sort of media so much that it loses its sort of nostalgic value? Alec, has that ever happened? Like have you ever
When I was a teenager, I watched Stripes probably.
You know what? That's weird. 'Cause I just
20
watched that for
times.
the first time this week.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Stripes.
I was like,
And what was your
Really?
immediate reaction at your age?
There's some good stuff in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a
Dated,
couple of really
obviously.
funny parts, but the rest of it's kind of.
lots of fromage in there.
Yeah.
But at that particular time, like, just I was such a Bill Murray nut. I thought he was so hilarious, and he is in selected parts of that.
Yeah.
But now looking at it at my age now, like I have a hard time. It almost makes me want to question my sense of humor at that age,
Yeah.
which it was just basically a juvenile sense of humor. And that's what he's doing, right? That's all his shtick, at least in those movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of the same in Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
which is many years after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's parts of it where it's like I just can't relate anymore. It's kind of like listening to that rock tune from 1981 that you thought was so good,
Yeah.
which really didn't have any classic qualities at all,
Yeah.
and now it's like just mildly embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's, like you say, then there's Star Wars. And I think Star Wars facilitates that too because it's so out there. It's got no sort of cultural ties
Mm-hmm.
That's
to
true.
the time when you saw it.
Yeah.
It just stands alone in time.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't date itself.
Yeah.
That's yeah. It's,
Mhm.
that's
It's,
a really
you know.
good way of putting it. Yeah.
Except for the haircuts.
And maybe some of the boots.
But I mean, it doesn't date itself the same way that, say, a show like Star Trek would have dated itself. Like, there's certain aspects of that show that
Yeah.
probably,
The technology. I mean,
yeah, the technology.
In Star Trek? What are you talking about? What's wrong with Star Trek?
Yeah, that's another one that you love. But I like it too.
Everything in Star Trek is still in the future. I don't care what you say. They still use paper in the future.
Yes, and Back to the Future was totally correct.
I'm just going to call Scotty here.
Yeah.
It was.
That's another
With
thing.
Ken in the future is Donald Trump. It's a reality.
This is a question for everybody. I'm going to go around the table. What's the line from Star Wars that when Luke finds out who his father is, what does Darth Vader say to him?
Well, I know what it is, but
I'm going to go around the table.
Before he finds out?
No, when Vader
Like, as he
tells
finds out.
him,
Luke,
what
I
is
am
it?
your father.
Okay, Shauna.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
Nick, what's the
I don't
real
know.
answer?
no, I am your father.
That's
He told me you killed him. No. I am your father.
what he actually says.
That's what he actually says.
He doesn't say, "Luke, I'm your father." That's like one of those sort of cultural memories that
Yeah.
people have
Yeah.
that is actually not true at all. Did you know that in Star Trek, there's never a time in the original run of Star Trek where anybody says, "Beam me up, Scotty."
Beam me aboard. Energize. Energizing.
They will say a variation of
Really?
that, but they will never say that exact
No.
line in the whole thing. But
Scotty, beam us up.
yeah, or Scotty, can you, whoever's in trouble
Yeah.
or something, you know, Scotty, make a stew, or I don't know.
Huh, that's funny.
Make
Yeah.
a haggis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've already got the haggis cooking.
Yeah.
It's getting cold, Captain. Get yourselves up here.
Beam that haggis up here, Scotty.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
And that's what happens, right? They get shortened down to a concise little soundbite
yeah,
Yeah.
for the sort of cultural memory, as you call
Yeah.
it.
yeah, yeah. You
I mean,
remember? I'm
It's
sorry. Go
part
ahead.
of-
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe that is part of why that whole Luke, I'm your father stands out, because it's just a cultural memory of it's concerning this character, Luke, and he is his father.
his
And
father.
it's- yeah, so
Yeah,
it's just
funny.
So the soundbite has to contain that information.
yeah,
in order
it's
to tell
Luke.
the story.
Yeah,
So yeah, that makes sense.
that's cool.
What was I going to say next?
I have a question. We talked about movies and music, but in terms of nostalgia, does anybody else here feel like they can actually be strongly nostalgic about an object?
Yeah, it's totally. I do. I agree with that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've got a whole box of my grandpa's stuff here.
Yeah, I've collected
Yeah.
stuff from my grandparents.
Yeah, I remember at my grandparents' house, they had this kind of crawl space, but it was like concrete over like the rocks. It was all rolling, and I remember going in there every time I would go when I was a kid, and they had this He-Man, like the Skeletor, but it was like a little like a spider thing that you could put the figures in, but we never had the figures to put in it, so it was just playing with the spider.
Okay.
And I don't know I never knew what happened to it, but I remember specifically playing with that toy every time I went there.
So if I put that on the table right now in front of you, would you just lose your mind?
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah.
I can picture that spider. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I know.
Late 80s, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your story about your object? What's an object that
Well,
that makes
my,
you feel-
my observation about it is that I think there's definitely a lot of people who will tell you that they're just not interested in things. They can't understand why you're nostalgic about some thing, some object, some man-made thing. right?
Yeah.
And I think the problem for that person is that they're not getting it, as Trump would say,
Yeah.
as his running mate would now say. They're not getting it, like Trump gets it.
Yeah.
What they're not getting is that the thing is actually just a trigger.
Trigger for
It's a trigger that's triggering an emotion, which is a memory of a time in your life, or a set of people, or a person, or even like a specific event,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what you're getting nostalgic about. It's not this piece of plastic or wood or,
Yeah.
you know, something that's been made by Mattel in China
Yeah.
by a
Yeah.
slave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the
Maybe.
prime example of that is photographs. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, aside from being printed on a piece of paper, if you don't have any context to what that picture is of, it's not going to mean anything to you. But if you were there and you took that picture, you're going to remember exactly where you were and why you took the picture like that, and
Yeah. That's
who was around you, and
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. You guys ever have a moment? I'm gonna end it on this right here. I'm gonna end on a personal note again. You guys ever have a moment of nostalgia that like just stopped you dead in your tracks? Like something that you just was so powerful that you're like, whoa! I just, you know, can you think of an example of that, or
I was trying to think of this earlier.
that's kind of a tough one. It does happen to us all the time, though, right? I mean, does it happen to you guys? Happens to me quite often.
I'm trying to think of an
especially
example.
especially associated with smells. I find smells trigger memories that I haven't thought of, that I probably would never have thought of again. Just getting a certain smell, I'm like, oh my god, I'm back in my dad's garage. The smell of some burning metal or something like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think smell is like the biggest trigger. I think
Yeah,
for
I've heard
nostalgia.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a shampoo that I never use, but which I think one of the people I was traveling with had it. Finesse, maybe.
Yeah.
It's got like a strong pine smell almost.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I was in New York City for the first time in my early 20s. Fantastic time in my life, right? obviously, that fits.
Yeah.
But, you know, I remember sitting in this shower looking out across the street to this like inner city school and being really interested in all the kids out in the playground, and I'm just washing my hair and we're getting ready to go out. And end of memory, right? But then like decades after that, for some reason I used that shampoo. It was like boom.
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
right there in Manhattan looking out that window.
Yeah. It's a very powerful
like
thing,
that.
and you can
Yeah.
almost see everything, and it's just through that sense of smell. Sort
Yeah.
of thing. I had the same thing. We were working with our own one day, and there was so many, like I just said, there was so many cutting steel, and that's the first time I smelled the smell of burning steel, and it just brought me right back to my dad's garage when I was a kid, and I was like standing there in my snow pants looking at my dad cutting some steel. Like it was just like I would have never have thought of that again. It was like a time warp, and I literally just stopped and I was like, whoa, and then it sort of passed. It was a really weird sort of feeling, but yeah.
Powerful, eh?
I can see how you get addicted to that. I kind of just want to go around smelling everything and see what will happen.
You probably won't enjoy some of those smells.
Probably not.
And then you'll have horrifying memories of them as you smell them again at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's... Do you guys have anything else you want to add, or...?
I just think in terms of nostalgia, it was pretty hilarious what you were doing the other night when we were sitting down watching the new Star Wars. And every time, like, the old characters, every time it was a scene that was there for the nostalgia value, I was, like, hamming it up.
Oh.
Like, oh, childhood tears, boo-hoo.
Yeah, and Han Solo runs on the screen. I'm like, oh, hey, childhood. Yay, childhood.
Yeah. And it was like, it was, at one point, it was like every 30 seconds, right? Like,
Yeah.
but, you know, that's it. That's great. And that's what that movie does to me, right? That's part of it.
Totally, yeah. That's...
I'm 12 years old walking down the sidewalk with my head in the stars.
I think it was with you. I think we saw it the second time. Yeah, and I was just like...
Yeah.
Guys in this movie. Mommy! Yeah. All right, I guess we'll say goodnight then. Hope you guys have some... hope you guys made some good memories with this podcast.
You must remember this.
Can you do it again?
I'm stopping right there.
No. Keep going. That's good. Yeah, that was like... Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by.